Chair Day, you can call the meeting to order.
Thank you very much. I'll call the meeting to order. It looks like it's a little after 11:30 a.m. Sorry. How many people do we have online? Okay, so we have a quorum. Thank you very much. We can go to the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Should we pause for roll call for just a moment, please?
However you want to do it is fine.
All right, so Velma,
Richard Farias, Lawson Picasso, Diana Martinez, Frank Gonzalez, Andy Castillo, Raquel Zapata, Adelita Cantu, John Kelly, Thomas Corser, Ali Waters, Bill Day, Mary Dennis, Steve Bonnet, and Andrea Capsato.
thank you. All right, so we will turn it over to the invocation and pledge of allegiance by Ms. Julia Haynes.
All right, everyone can bow their head, please. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come together today. We are grateful for this day that you've given us and for its many blessings. We ask that you guide our thoughts and our actions so that we may have a successful meeting of the CPS Energy Citizens Advisory Committee. Help us to accomplish great things this day, and may we display an attitude of cooperation and respect as we fulfill our obligations to our community. We pray these things in your name. Amen. And if you can all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Julia. All right, so we will move over to our safety message and staff update. The safety message has two parts. The first is the safety tailboard. I'd like to point out again that our address, in the event that anyone in this room needs to call for emergency response, we are at 500 McCullough. The staff member that is tasked with calling 911 will be Julia Haynes, who's seated in the back. Direct emergency responder will be Velma. She will greet them at the door and take them where they need to go. As far as an AED and a first aid kit, both pieces are mounted on the wall next to the security desk in our front lobby. CPR certification, Julia Haynes will assist with that. And also a fire extinguisher is located at the exit doors that are on the right-hand side of this room. Immediately outside those doors is a fire extinguisher. Today's safety message is regarding intersection incidents. So I thought it would be wise to do a traffic-related safety message because there is so much construction going on around town. It's going on at night. I got caught up on quite a bit of it last night, and it poses hazards. So as a friendly reminder, rear end crashes and side swipes are some of the most common types of intersection incidents. Employees who drive for work should practice the following tips when driving in and around intersections. When approaching an intersection, always enter the correct lane before reaching an intersection and signal appropriately before changing lanes. Watch for caution signs. Be aware of turn restrictions, pedestrian crossings, and ongoing construction that can limit your actions. Watch for vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists in all directions before making a turn at an intersection. Maintaining a safe distance between your car and the vehicle in front of you can help avoid intersection collisions. The person ahead may turn or stop when approaching an intersection, and that can catch you off guard. Tailgating behind large trucks blocks your vision of traffic signals ahead and possibly causing you to enter a signal at a red phase. Be alert to brake lights or turn signals beyond the vehicle ahead of you and try to anticipate when others will slow down. If you're turning right, look ahead, to the left, and to the right before accelerating. Vehicles ahead of you may stop for pedestrians who are crossing the street. Avoid distractions such as adjusting your radio and looking at your cell phone, as they can cause crashes. If vehicles are stopped at an intersection with no stop sign or signal, use extra caution when approaching them. If a vehicle is stopped, it is usually for a good reason. Lastly, when crossing an intersection, watch for cross traffic. Running a red light is a leading cause of intersection collisions. Be alert to traffic from the opposite direction turning across your lane in an intersection. Even if you have the right of way, some intersections allow for left turns without a green arrow. Do not race a yellow light or assume you are safe crossing an intersection on a yellow light. Always stop behind the marked stop line on a crosswalk so your vehicle does not obstruct the intersection. Do not enter an intersection if traffic is backed up to the other side, or you may get stuck in the middle of it. Do not change lanes while driving through an intersection. Merge after you have cleared the intersection. Treat all non-functioning traffic signals as all-way stops. The best way to prevent an intersection incident is by being aware, prepared, and thoughtful about your driving plan. That concludes today's safety message. All right, Chair Day, we, as far as staff updates, just want to mention a couple of things. At the bottom of your agenda today, we have our standard updates. You know, we have the Rate Advisory Committee is meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock. You know, if any of you are interested in joining, remember you have the option of joining either in person or watching it live stream. Monday, the 26th, our Board of Trustees will have their monthly board meeting at 1 o'clock. Again, any of you are welcome to join in person or via live stream. And we will be bringing in some new members of the CAC on that day as well. Tuesday, the 27th, the MUC will have a meeting, and the agenda is a SAWS-only agenda. But again, that's you can attend that in person or watch that via live stream. Your next meeting as a committee is on October the 12th at 11:30. Velma also sent an email to all of you earlier this morning that includes the presentation that Benny Etheridge will be giving later on this morning, and she also included some community events that are coming up this week as well as in the coming weeks. Always good for community engagement, so we always like to share that with you. We also have a joint CPS Energy and SAWS board meeting on the 21st of September. The focus of that meeting is going to be regarding a joint agreement between SAWS and CPS Energy relative to some backup generators at their as major pumping stations, and you know our ability to push some of that energy to the grid. So that will be a very good joint partnership meeting, and something that if you can listen to that on the 21st, we'd definitely love to have you joining us for that. So that concludes the staff update for today, and I will turn it over to Chair Day for approval of the meeting minutes.
Yvonne, if
I'm
I
sorry.
can interrupt just 1 second. I just want to acknowledge that we have Richard, Lawson, and Frank have joined us online.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Welcome, everybody. We were distributed a copy of the minutes with our invitations. Those of you who are in the room, we have a copy in front of you if you want to look at it. Those of you who are joining online, you should have a copy by email. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes as they were sent out? Tom?
I don't know if it matters. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I'm checked as present, so
Yes, we'll amend that.
I'm glad my presence carries over to that.
Well, yeah, just as a tip, so I ask every meeting whether everybody's reviewed the minutes. It's always a good idea to check whether your attendance was listed correctly. So thank you for doing that. I've wanted to get credit for actually being there when I was listed as absent before, but we'll take this one too. Okay, with that amendment, are there any other changes to the minutes?
Move approval.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have a second? Diana, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right, so our presentation for today is regarding our power generation summer performance. And we have Mr. Benny Etheridge, who is our Executive Vice President of our Energy Supply. I will say that this presentation was given recently to our Municipal Utilities Committee, generated a lot of very thoughtful dialogue. So I think you will find this very informative. Again, looking back at our summer performance, and also you will begin to hear a little bit more relative to our power plants in the coming months as we discuss not only with our board, but with the MUC preparations for the winter season. So Benny, I will turn it over to you. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Yvonne, and good afternoon, folks. It's a pleasure to be here and actually see you in person. It's looking forward to moving out of this COVID thing, getting business back to normal. Let's see here. Am I shifting gears on this present? Perfect. If you would, shift gears. Thank you. Slide 2, please. There we go. So wanted to talk with you a little bit about what we've seen this summer, get into plant reliability and performance issues, maybe a little bit about some lost generation, and quick update on our maintenance practices. The net here is our teams all came together and we've delivered over 7 million megawatt hours to our customers this summer. And between our power gen and commercial team, they didn't miss a beat. We have had some challenges, but they were on track. I'd like for this to be interactive to the extent you have questions or whatever. If you see something up here, let's just have a conversation. Okay, so think about it that way, and I'm happy to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. Oh, well, thank you. Okay, let's go to the next page, please. Okay, so you all live here in San Antonio, so I know I don't have to tell you, we broke records 3 of the 4 months this summer. It was really hot. In fact, we're at 58 days of 100+ degrees, and the record was set in 2009 at 59 days. That put all kinds of stress on our community. And you know what the great news is? The water system held up. Our teams held up. We had 0 safety events because of heat stress. We were really focused on that with our teams. That, job one for us is to make sure our people stay safe. And if they stay safe, then we can conduct the business of the people, which is running our power plants. They did it. They did a really good job. So really, really pleased about the way we've managed this summer. And I think it's a testament to the commitment of our team and the work we've done to make sure the plant was ready. Plants. Next page, please. So looking ahead to the fall, the weather people that we talk to tell us it's probably going to be a little warmer than normal and maybe a little drier than normal. Okay, so that's a good factoid. Fact is, we have to be prepared whatever nature throws at us. And we are. We're working through that now. We're starting our winter preparations and expect that to be complete well in advance of our certification to ERCOT. But officially, the forecast says be a pretty mild fall. And so we hope it is. And we will certainly take advantage of that, but our teams have prepared for more challenging weather. Yes, sir.
Benny, I appreciate the temperature and all the implications it has on you, but precipitation, does that affect you at all? Any impact there?
So it does. Let's see. Are we on video? Do I need to stand here? Okay, all right. Gotcha. Okay. So precipitation does impact us in that we have to pump water to keep our lakes at an appropriate level for cooling. When we get rain, we get fresh water in the lakes. We don't have to pump as much. Excessive amounts of rain make it difficult on our teams doing maintenance activities. When we have lightning, we've got a monitoring program. When there's lightning in the area, our people have to come off the units and can't do maintenance. I'm sorry, San Antonio River. Okay. Okay, so let's go to a fresh page. All right, so we put these together to get a good view of how our plants are doing. This is a tool we use just to kind of keep an eye on things at a big level. It's easy for us as technical people to really dig down into the weeds. These charts help us get back to a higher level and just think about big picture. And so what you're seeing there is our combined cycle actual production is a little off. Coal is actually picked up pretty good in terms of our plan. You can see the remaining out there in the gray. Original was initial forecast was in blue. Our peaking units are up significantly, as are our gas steam units. Latest estimate. That's currently, here's what we think is going to happen. I will tell you that this summer, as indicated, we were around 7 million megawatt hours produced. We're a little ahead of the curve in terms of what we were thinking we were going to do this year. And that's what this shows. I'll tell you, we did have a couple of pretty good outages. We'll talk about those in just a few minutes, but big picture, plants are performing pretty good when you look at what they're doing. Next page, please. Okay, so we always try and talk about plant performance. We work with our teams. It's, what are we doing? What are we learning? And so this is our highlights. At the end of the day, we've kept the focus on zero injuries, heat stress prevention. The teams have really delivered well. Our summer availability is 86.6%, a little less than our forecast, a little less than we planned. I'll talk about that in a couple slides. Our peaking units have held the line for us. They're starting and they're there when we need them. The significance of that is the peaking units are what help protect us from high price spikes in the market. It usually doesn't take a lot of megawatts produced to knock down a rapidly changing price increase because of some fluctuation in the grid. These are really our last level of protection against changes.
Physically, what is a peaking unit?
A peaking unit in our case, these are LM6000, which is a gas turbine. They're an aeroderivative, meaning these are the same kind of engines you would see on the side of a aircraft, a larger aircraft, obviously. But they start fast, they can change load rapidly, and then they can shut down quickly. You can go through multiple starts a day. And so they're good for peaking duty. We'll be talking more about that. If you're in attendance at the RAC meetings, you'll start hearing more about peaking duty and how they're important to ultimately protect you from higher prices. So bottom line is that equipment is done really well. Looking forward, proactive maintenance that supports high reliability. Well, it sounds really good, but what it means is stay out in front of our maintenance program. And our teams are working on that every day. Equipment performance surveillance. We use a automated system called Asset 360, and it's an online continuous monitoring. It pulls data off our units. There's an algorithm that works in the background that alerts us to changing conditions and gives us a head start on detecting issues. So we've got systems like that in place. And again, our focus remains 100% reliability. That's what we work to every day. Next page, please. Okay, so I promised I would talk about lost generation issues. As I said, we've had some good ones this summer. Summer's one, we had a problem with a boiler feed pump. As you can see, we were out for almost a month on that unit. That's 420 megawatts. Browning 2 steam turbine, we had a condensate pump problem, required repair, extended outage on it. We were able to operate at a lower level there, so that was helpful. Spruce 2, largest coal unit. We had a problem there too. We had tube leaks. We've got programs in place and we still had tube leaks. The team was able to effect repairs safely and we got the unit back online. You can see the lost megawatts there along the bottom. Rio Nogales, we had a new steam turbine rotor installed last fall. We developed a problem midsummer. June 13th, I guess is what I should say. And we were out for a month. Yeah, that's a warranty issue. We're working on that.
Hey, Benny, sorry, have a
Yes,
little bit of a question that, or maybe it would help me understand.
Mhm.
Can you tell us what percent of the overall power generation that you needed was knocked offline by these events? I mean, was the first one, was that 2% of the overall generation capability? Or, I mean, is it possible to do that? I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it incorrectly.
So I don't have specifics on these. What I will tell you is we never dipped 10% below target was sort of the mean across the summer, I think.
Okay.
But the significance here is we've got a commercial team that backstops our units. And so we have contracts in place where we can reach into the market and we can purchase power as needed.
Okay.
That's what happens when this happens.
So that's another backup for us if our own generation is out of.
So we delivered everything we needed in each of these cases.
Okay.
Peakers are our first line of defense, right? That and other units that are operated lower in load, we can ramp those, increase the output of those units. we can start our peaking units, and each one of them is around 48 megawatts. So we can start stacking those up. And then that gives our commercial team time to make other arrangements in the market and buy power from people that aren't using it at the time.
Just a quick question, we'll follow up then. The peaking units, how many of those do we
So
have?
we have 8.
8, okay. All right, thank you.
So I'm going to try to ask, I think you answered my question as well, but I'm going to try to ask John's question a little bit different way.
Okay.
If you say, here's our, over the summer, here was our peak load, right? And demand, right? How far is that from our capacity? And I think you answered it by ERCOT, basically our capacities for all intents and purposes infinite because we can buy from that market. It's just a question of price, right?
To the
But,
extent, yeah.
so, but from our generation capacity, where did we stand relative to that if you take ERCOT out of that?
So
equation?
we used up virtually all of our capacity this summer. We set a record, I think, of 5,400 megawatts. So our total owned capacity is 5,700 megawatts. And then we've got another 1,500 and some change in renewable power purchase agreements for wind and solar. So we're getting up there pretty good.
What's more impactful? I'm sorry. What's more impactful, the summers and the demand or the winters? I mean, Erie's a 3 sigma kind of event, right? But
It is.
But generally, the summers are more stressful on the power grid.
Yes, sir. Summer is our peak season for all intents and purposes. But what we've seen is that winter can raise its head and also become an equally demanding period because remember, the way we traditionally operated our units, we prepared for summer and then we would do maintenance during the winter period when demand was lower. Well, that opened us up to some challenges. In fact, I got another slide. Why don't you go to the next page? Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you so much. When I look at the screen, the mayor, I see install, repair. These are cost indicators. They cost money. And I think that we have to, as CAC members, that this is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our constituents that these things cost money to repair, to replace. And that is part of, I think, the conversation. They're not just, charging money for anything. These things are high dollar, I would imagine. So I just wanted to just bring that out.
Yes, ma'am. You are correct. Each of these is additional money. Now, I will tell you that in our budgets, we build in dollars for maintenance. You have things you have to do, and then you have a run rate of things that you typically have to do. We were able to cover this within our allocated budget. But you're right, these do consume dollars. Thank you. Okay, we were talking about outages in the winter season. Coming out of Uri, one of the lessons learned we came up with was, let's maximize our available generation during periods of peak exposure. Not necessarily peak cold, because we don't know, right? We've got a forecast, and we looked at one when I started this presentation, but on average, those are your coldest months. That's when Winter Storm Uri occurred, for example. We've moved our unit shutdowns for maintenance out of that period. And so we stacked them up on each end. Now, does that present us some challenges? Absolutely it does. It did this year. We saw an early hot May, atypical, right? That's just not normal. So we had to manage that, meaning we had to buy power from the market in some cases until we could get our units out of outage and back. So that will continue to be a challenge for us as we work through this process. I will tell you our teams are capturing data and we will be talking through options. Perhaps there's some slight modifications we can make to this practice. So we're going to look at that. Okay, next page, please. Lessons learned. This is something our team goes through on a regular basis. We look at things that occurred over a period of time, and we say, now, what could we have done different so that we didn't have those problems? Well, that's what we did here. And in this case, looking at what we've seen this summer in terms of some of these issues for our people, for our outage schedule, and then ESMO is our energy supply and market operations team. And basically increase experienced contractor support. Now, that's an interesting statement because our contractors are like everybody else. It's a very, very tight labor market and their supplies are dwindling. So in many cases, we are seeing contractors with less experience. And you all know from your jobs that when you've got people with less experience, they require more supervision, they require more direction, they require more oversight. Those are some of the things we're focused on. That and backing off on the overtime. You know, CPS Energy has a long history of serving the community. I can tell you that we've seen accidents in the past where somebody will do something, they'll get hurt. And you ask them, why did you do that? Well, we were trying to get the lights back on. You tell them, hey, we appreciate that, but we don't want you to get hurt. The commitment of this team is fantastic and they will work. I had teams working this last weekend when everybody was off for the holiday weekend. They come in and they work. So we're making a concerted effort to try and help them improve the quality of their life also, because burnout is real. In terms of outage schedule, again, strengthen our outage management support program, additional supervision I mentioned. Evaluate extending small unit outages into January. This is one of the things we talked about. So we're going to look at, see how this goes this year. Do you have a question now?
Yeah, Benny, as a new member of this committee, I just want to make sure I understand the terminology. When you talk about planned outages,
Yes, sir.
that's a part of your regular maintenance schedule, I assume, for your
Correct.
plants.
Yes, sir.
You have that built into your schedule throughout the year.
I should say major maintenance. So you have routine maintenance that people do every day. They may have to take a small piece of equipment out or they may not, depending on what they're doing. Every year, we'll have a certain amount of time that we have to schedule for major maintenance. That's where you're taking the entire unit offline for a period of time to safely make any repairs required or perform inspections.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Power purchase strategies during outages. They did a really good job there, so I'm anxious to hear what we're going to do to refine. Increase shoulder month generation capacity. That really goes hand in hand with, gee, what could we do with the peakers? Could we pull those outages into that winter period just to give us a little bit more flexibility in the shoulder months? We're going to have to work on that. Yes, sir. No, don't be. Conversation.
If everybody, I'm sure everybody is thinking the same thing that y'all are, that the fall and spring time periods are where you're going to need to shift your focus for major maintenance so that you don't, run the risk of having a problem in the middle of winter like we did a couple years ago.
Yes, sir.
So everybody, it's not just us that's figured that out. Mm-hmm. So the question, I guess, in my mind is and it goes back to your statement about people and having enough experienced people. With everybody trying to focus on spring and fall, how do we assure that we've got enough technical expertise available to us to do the work we need to do for maintenance?
So we own a core amount of leadership. When I say own, we want our people. We
Sure.
hire enough team to provide us the core technical expertise we need, and we contract the rest.
Okay.
I will tell you that based on what we're seeing in ERCOT, we have to reach outside of ERCOT to bring in additional people.
Okay.
From the Northeast, for example. So that's an option for us as well. But you're right, everybody's doing it. I will tell you, though, that ERCOT is overseeing the outage process. And I think even this last year, even if we would have tried to schedule something in January, they would have declined the request. So it's going to be a challenge for the industry for a period of time. And I think those that plan well, staff well, and aggressively pursue their activities will be rewarded. But we definitely have to bring our A game every day when we're managing those outages. Thank you.
I'm gonna piggyback off of John's question, but with the prediction of a mild winter and how much we used the plants this past year, I know our maintenance is coming up. Is that gonna make the maintenance time longer, just because of how much we used them this past summer? And then with the mild winter coming, since the performance is going to have to keep up? Is that maintenance going to have to continue for a longer period of time?
That would be an option, but it's not an option we have. We instead, I get you, understand your question. Basically, are we going to have more maintenance work to do as a result of the longer summer run? And there will be some additional inspection, possibly repair replacement for wear parts and such that will occur. But we've only got a finite amount of time to do it in, so we have to be very good at planning and scheduling our outage maintenance to make that happen. And that's what we're focused on. So we don't get extra time, I guess is what I'm saying. There's 24 hours in a day. And I think I saw a cartoon the other day and said, what we need is another day between Sunday and Monday. That's the way it is in our maintenance team's world sometimes.
When
Yes,
you
sir.
figure that out, let me know.
We will. We'll write a paper and we'll all retire.
Exactly. So it kind of piggybacks off the other question I had earlier that worked off of John's, but so from a peak capacity perspective, right, we used ERCOT to kind of take out our peaks, right? Or the turbine generators that you said, the peakers. So what about the opposite? In other words, did we provide our generation capacity, provide back to ERCOT? Give us a feel for what we used from ERCOT versus what we gave to ERCOT. And then the next one's going to be the economics behind that.
Absolutely. So I have to be careful with numbers here because I tend to mess those up when I'm pulling them off the top of my head. Okay. I will tell you that we are a big part of what ERCOT does. We're 7% of ERCOT. Okay, here, our load, all right, the amount of electricity we use is 7%. We make up a significantly larger portion of ERCOT's generation, including their reserve margin. The reserve margin is just how much extra generation capability you have over what you need.
Right.
So we contribute at a significantly larger scale, and we can get those numbers and report back to you, and I'm happy to do that.
Is it like double or?
No,
like
it wouldn't be
10%
double,
more?
but you're talking 10-ish plus %, I think.
Got it.
So we are
Significant.
a contributing member of ERCOT in many ways. Here recently, ERCOT was looking for one of those 100-degree days. ERCOT was looking for load reduction to avoid some system challenges again. Well, when you look at our demand response program, we've got a great community. They kicked in and they answered the call. We're extraordinarily disproportionate. I can't say a majority because we weren't a majority of what they were able to pull in, but very disproportionate share of what they got came from little San Antonio compared to the other major cities.
Great. Good answer. So economics of that, right? So we probably pay dollars per kilowatt hour, whatever the metric is, more when we buy from ERCOT than if we generated ourselves. Is that a true statement?
Not always.
Not always.
Yeah, see, that's the beauty of the market and the way it works. When ERCOT dispatches based on cost, your units are bid into the market and ERCOT selects the most economical units first, and they keep working up that stack until they've got all the capacity they want. And since Uri, also some additional capacity just in case. And that's, we talked about rucking units, it's a reserve commitment. So it's an economic dispatch that they do. And so the best value, I've seen cases where we'll bid in, we'll get a day ahead award in the market. Okay, we bid in the day before, they say, tomorrow we want you to run your unit, we're going to pay you X dollars. I've seen cases where the price in the real time market the next day is lower than what that award is. So it's cheaper for us to spool our unit back, take our day ahead award, and then purchase real time.
So I guess I don't know ERCOT well enough with respect to CPS, but basically we generate all of our power into ERCOT. That market maker, if you will, across the state, then we buy back what we need. Is
Yes, sir.
is that right?
That's correct.
Huh.
And it
Different from what I thought. I thought we generated our power and we'd buy when we needed more, or we'd sell when we had more than we needed.
We there are cases where when we have major outages, like we talked about, that maybe we don't have enough power to meet all of our needs that we're pushing into the market.
Yeah.
So we're buying our power back, right? So it's a net zero. Plus we're buying a little additional electricity from the market. But we sell everything in, we buy back what we need. With 5,700 megawatts of installed capacity, owned capacity, plus another 1,500 in renewables, more often than not, we're selling in and buying ours back at a neutral cost, and we're protecting our customers from higher prices. Higher prices would come from us having to go into the market and buy power from someone else.
But the price, sorry to dwell on this, Bill.
Okay.
The price that we pay when we buy back our own power is based on our cost,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, sir.
It's not based on the market makers out there fiddling around with it. It's based on our cost.
Yeah, day ahead. You know what? We could do an entire presentation. I've got a really smart team upstairs that can put together a presentation and can explain this much better than I am right now.
I'm sorry for the tangent.
No. It's important. I think it's important that you understand this. We appreciate your interest. So let us get that done. But the bottom line is sometimes it's cheaper to buy power than it is to make it ourselves. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. So any other questions, thoughts?
Yes, Bill, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that I know CPS has gotten a lot of slack the last couple of years, but this organization is amazing. And on behalf of this group and those online, we want to say thank you, and to those team members that have get out there every day and make this happen. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it, and I'll share that with them. It's a great team, I'll tell you folks, and they come to work every day to serve you all. So thank you very much.
Other questions? Benny, again, thank you for your presentation. Another fine job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is a visit from the newly appointed CEO. Do we have him available?
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Benny. Always a very interesting and informative topic. And we will plan on us bringing you again for another visit. So we are just a little bit ahead of schedule. So Rudy Garza will be joining us, in just a few minutes. What I was going to suggest, sir, is perhaps you might want to move a little bit into your roundtable a little bit. And then when we have Rudy logged in, then we can hit pause and move to that agenda item.
Yeah, so I was going to mention in my portion of the roundtable when we go around and talk about stuff, give you all an update on the discussion that John, Kelly, and Allie and I had with Board of Trustee member Romero from the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. She wanted to talk to the leadership team about bylaws and do a comparison between the CAC and the RAC and see what kind of overlap there is and talk a little bit about what we do, because she's a new trustee and was not as familiar with the CAC as she is with the RAC. So we had a good discussion on the 31st, I think it was. I dialed in, I was out of town, but I think everybody else was on Zoom, and answered her questions, and I think satisfied her curiosity. One of the things that she wanted to know about was how we approach things and what kind of topics we look at. And we explained that the RAC is more or less a single purpose entity. They're looking at rates and generation and rate equity and things like that. Whereas the CAC talks about literally anything affecting CPS Energy and is a go-between between ratepayers in the community and the organization as a whole, and we send information both directions. And for instance, I said that one of the most common things that we hear from our constituents is questions about getting your trees trimmed around power lines, or things about bills and who do we talk to, and so it's a little bit of everything. It's not strictly rates and some of the things that have been very much in the news recently. I did want to take the opportunity when we talked with Trustee Romero to stress and make sure she understands that we consider the CAC an independent body independent from the Board of Trustees, that we work, for lack of a better term, for the entire organization, for ratepayers, for the staff, for the organization. We're not, again, a single entity, single purpose entity from the Board of Trustees, which is a little bit different than the RAC. The RAC was created by the board for purpose to advise them on rates. So I explained how we are, we like our independence. We feel that that gives us the ability to ask hard questions if we need to bring things up to the trustees if we need to, or to the staff if we need to, or to the community if we feel that. And I think she understood that. And John, feel free to jump in, even though I'm holding our microphone. And then there were some questions about the differences between the bylaws, as I said. And one of the things I found interesting about the RAC was that it says specifically in the RAC's bylaws that they are a consensus-based organization, and they require a 60% approval on a vote, which is different than the CAC. When we take votes, it's simple majority. But with rare exceptions, we are also very consensus-based and come to a agreement through discussion and trial and error and so forth. And then the last thing was Trustee Romero had a question for us. The RAC has a board liaison. A member of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees is a liaison to the RAC and sits in on their meetings. And she wanted to know if we wanted to have a board liaison in the same way. And I said, I don't know. We've never had one before. I've never heard any CAC members express a desire or a need for that. I said, again, it would, may make the perception of our independence a little bit diminished if we had somebody from the trustees in here on a regular basis. But I wanted to throw that out to the committee. Again, I haven't heard anything from any committee members go, it'd be really nice to have a board of trustee member here. There's no reason why we wouldn't, but it's not something that we normally do. So that was it. And I said, again, talking about the independence, well, and Trustee Romero wanted to know if that meant that she couldn't ask us questions or make suggestions or, nominate people or recommend people if we have openings. I said, absolutely, you can do those things. Please do. We want to keep lines of communication open. If I feel or the committee feels that some lines are being crossed, we'll be happy to let you know, as we have in other instances when that has happened. But just wanted to give you an update on that and see if you all had any questions or comments about it.
Bill, you mentioned the bylaws. I haven't seen the bylaws. Is that readily available to all the members?
Yes, we will get you a copy.
I'd like to get a copy of that.
And we'll send you a copy of the RAC bylaws as well if you want to see those.
And I was trying to understand our advisory nature. Is it advisory mainly to staff, or do we ever advise the board?
We do. The chair in our bylaws is asked to report to the CPS board regularly and has the authority and option to present an annual report, a written report to the CPS Energy Board on our activities. But any committee member at any time can go to the CPS Energy Board, or members of staff, or the city council, if you so choose, as a member of the CAC. That's entirely within your ability to do that. So we are structured so that we communicate with the organization as a whole, not specifically just the board, not specifically just the staff, but CPS Energy as a whole entity, if that makes sense. Tom has a question. I'm shocked.
Thought I'd try it out. Not so much a question, but a comment. You asked what we thought of having a trustee be on our kind of assigned to us. I would say generally I agree with you, no, but it'd be great to hear from him. So maybe leverage that to say every quarter, every 6 months, rotate through the trustees and have them come talk to us, make a presentation, or just have a dialogue kind of like this, right? And what's on your mind, here's what's on our mind, that kind of thing. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, that's an idea. Of course, you all are welcome to attend the CPS Energy Board of Trustees meetings anytime you want. But yeah, that's a good idea. That was actually something I considered. It's like quarterly or semi-annually, have somebody come in and just, see if there's anything we want to let them know. Andy, you're a member of both committees. Any comments?
I was thinking about the same, that if we have one, a presence in here, it might change the dynamic of how we talk and present. So I do like the independence that this board has compared to the REC, and how different that is compared to how we are in this committee.
Yeah.
So-
And for instance, sometimes we get presentations from staff before they go to the board. They're running it past us for feedback of what we think the public's reaction will be before they finalize it and send it to the board. So having a board member in here would kind of defeat that purpose. It's something we could work around, obviously, but that was one of the things that we are kind of a sounding board for the staff when they're working on a proposal that they're going to take to the board, to let them know what we think the reaction is going to be. Do we need to steer this in a different direction? Maybe you want to stay away from that versus this kind of. There we go. You're very close. Okay. Before we get to the main event, is there any other questions or comments on that?
Oh, I think that I like Tom's idea. I think it would be a good opportunity for us to have dialogue. I think it is important that we are, at least at some point during the year, in the same room at the same table. I think that's helpful for the organization. And as far as the presentations, if it's something, you set the agenda, the chair sets the agenda. So we'll just be sure that we don't set anything that day, that shouldn't be out. But I think this is a great idea.
Just quickly, I think it's a good idea too. My suggestion would be maybe we invite the board member at that maybe semi-annual meeting, and maybe invite them to come first. And then, after we've had that discussion, we could shift gears and, let them go ahead about their business, and we could finish our discussion. I agree with everything that Bill said. I think he's done a great job of conveying what we had and what discussion we had. I do think that if we had the presence of a board member every time for a whole meeting, I think that would tend to chill our independence and kind of limit our freedom to discuss things.
Okay, Yvonne, do you want to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. So we'll come back to roundtable in a little bit, but but of course, I am super proud to welcome Mr. Rudy Garza, our new President and CEO of CPS Energy. Welcome, Rudy. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if we have any of our members on the phone, but thank you for being on with us, and thank you all for being here in the room. I'm a three-dimensional kind of guy, so anytime I know y'all are in the building and I'm in the building, I'm going to try to be in the building too. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your continued service to CPS Energy and the community. When we have been on a pretty significant, substantial journey over the last 10, 11 months now, trying to just get things to settle down a bit and refocus, the team. And I think by and large, the result of the board giving me the opportunity, to lead what's a fantastic organization, at least, hopefully for the next 5 years. But, again, people keep introducing me as the permanent CEO, and there's not a permanent anything in this world. I am the current CEO, and will be until the board tells me otherwise. But we got here because the team pulled together and rallied around, me stepping in at what was a really, really difficult time. And we moved forward together, one kind of step at a time. And I think what I have tried to do during my time in this role is really empower the team to do their jobs, to act, to simplify the conversation about what CPS is for the community and what CPS Energy isn't for the community. And fundamentally, our job is to provide, affordable, reliable, cost competitive, and sustainable energy for our community. We are an electric and gas utility. Fundamentally, that is why we exist. Our rates pay for what it takes to provide that service to the community, and our owner gets their 14%, on top of that, and so we're a cost plus organization, and so I'm not going to spend I'm going to spend most of my effort talking to the community about the things that are important to them, and getting things done one opportunity at a time. Our job is to execute. If we can't lead a process to an execution phase, then, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. The team will tell you, I think I am supportive to a point, but my wife would tell you I'm not a particularly patient man. And I just want to get things done, and I want to do it as quietly and as efficiently as we possibly can. So for me, you're going to see us focus on the basics, and we got a lot. We've already laid out a 5-year strategic plan that the board asked us for. We're going to post that. I don't know if you've seen the document in its entirety, but we've broken it down to a 1-page summary that I think is really easy to understand. And it's easy, and we need our employees to understand the role they play in executing to that 5-year strategic plan, and we need for the community to understand what our focus is, because there's going to be a lot of, well, yeah, that'd be great, but no, that's not part of our initial focus, because we've just spread ourselves too thin over the years, and taking on these little projects here and there, dilutes our resource base when Benny's got to make decisions about our resource plan in the future. And, Vivian's got to replace a system that's 22 years old that's holding us back from what we need to be, for our community in the future. We got some fundamental utility stuff that we got to invest in. And then once we figure out what all that's going to cost and compare it to what's coming in, in our current rates, I got to go have another conversation with the city council about, what that means for our rate, our rate structure. So, my 5 years is going to take up most of that, and if I try to be slick and coming up with some new whiz-bang program, it's going to take us away from that. And so, again, I'm going to be focused on the basics. I want my team to feel empowered. I'm going to try to provide value where I can, and for the most part, step out of the way. My job is to deal with our board, to get things through our board that they need to make decisions on one way or the other. And honestly, we're going to present our recommendation, and the board's going to decide. And if the board decides to go a different direction, then we'll execute to that. One of the things about my leadership that you'll find is, it's not about me. I don't have so much pride that I'm going to get too upset if the board or council decides they want to do something different. Look, I want to get alignment, and I want to go in whatever direction that means. And I think that's going to provide a lot of focus that maybe we've gotten away from over the years, for a company that's too important to the community to fail. I don't want folks in the community to feel like we're not listening. So we're going to listen, and our plans are going to reflect the input we get from the community, in whatever form that means. And when I can't do it, I'm going to tell them why, and we're going to talk about that. Right, Mayor, you do that every council meeting. You do that, don't you? I don't think it's too much to ask for us to listen to our customers and to act based on that feedback. So really, I'm trying to break, what to expect out of me down to a really simple, place. We just want to provide the best service we can possibly provide for our customers. And when we need a rate increase, I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to go, talk about it, and if they vote it down, then we'll deal with that. That's all I can do. Really, I think we've overthought that. We've overthought that process over the years. It shouldn't be. Quite frankly, we got to go in every year with the state of the utility, financially, and talk about where we're at and where the pain points are, and when we need it, I'm gonna go ask for it, and we'll see what happens. Again, and if they vote me down, I'm not gonna get too upset about it. We'll figure it out. We have to, and that kind of just reality-based kind of, direction is what you can expect, out of me. So anyway, I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to answer any questions that you all might have.
What do you need from us?
Well,
Thank you, Tom.
I got asked that question at a breakfast meeting this morning with some local business leaders. And really what I need is I need the community to stop beating us over the head and just, we're all part of the same team. I'm using this one team concept for a reason. Our employees feel it. Every time somebody gets out there and starts talking trash about CPS Energy, it doesn't help with my morale. It just doesn't. And it doesn't help the conversation, on actually, solutioning, on the things that matter to our customers. So let's have an honest conversation, but let's hold each other accountable that we're all part of the same team. CPS Energy is the difference on why our community has been so successful over the years. The revenue we provide back to the city, which my job is to ensure they get their 14%, right? I don't argue about it. It was set up that way. The construct was set up that way long ago. Anybody that wants to argue that point, go talk to city council. That's their job, is to figure that out, right? My job is to ensure they get their 14% and do the best I can with the rest of it. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time paying attention to people that aren't on our team. I'm going to respect their opinion, but I don't think it takes calling us out. We're trying to do the best we can. Our employees have no other objective than to serve. So why are we going to beat each other up about it? So what you can do as CAC members who probably get 10 times more information than most, you're not just part of the team, you're part of our inner circle, right? Set people straight. Don't be afraid to speak up when you hear somebody say, "Oh, CPS Energy is horrible at meeting new construction. We can't get transformers right now." I guarantee you it's not our process. We want to connect you. But if I don't have transformers to serve you, that's a global supply chain issue. That's not a CPS Energy issue. I corrected somebody this morning on that point. And so the main thing is don't be afraid to speak up. And if for some reason you can't answer a question, call me or call any of us and we'll go answer. We'll help you get the right answer. I appreciate that question, Tom. Here.
Do I look like I want to talk? No, I mean, it's what I was trying to say earlier. I think it's up to us as members of this committee to go out and celebrate and be the biggest cheerleaders for CPS. Of course, there's problems. That's life. But I like what you just said. Let's try to figure out and move on, and let's encourage each other, lift each other up, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We all need to turn our lights on. For whatever reasons, we are all in this together. So let's just support each other and go out and just be big cheerleaders for this amazing organization. And those employees are who we need to be lifting up, because these days with people quitting work and just going other places or doing nothing, we are really blessed to have the team that we do. So I just think it's part of our job as these committee members is to go and lift those up. And I got your new slogan, brilliance in the basics.
I like it. That's a mic drop moment. I may not need to say another word. Brilliance in the basics. Love it. Anybody else? No.
Hi, I'm coming in from virtual. It's Lawson. Rudy, I just wanted to extend my congratulations to you on being in this role. I'm glad that we took the interim out and now you're just CEO. I had the fortunate pleasure to have worked with you during the pandemic and got to see and listen to firsthand the empathy and concern that you had for the community during a point of need. And so I'm really, really glad that the board agreed with all of us in saying that you were the right leadership for CPS. And I hear you in understanding that, there are people that are beating the drum against a lot of the efforts that are sometimes out of CPS Energy's hands. And so however we can support to ensure that we can clarify some of those messages, I think is going to be very important to ensuring that you have a successful tenure in your leadership. So just again, echoing what you've already heard within the audience there, we're here to support you however it is we can, and just understanding that we have a responsibility to recorrect some of the current information that's going out there, and in educating the community from our end to ensure they understand what your responsibility is and how there's other folks at play that have responsibilities as well that need to be handled respectively. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that supportive commentary. You know, I guess what I'd say is when you look at our core values and we've adjusted them a bit, you're going to see two things in there that I've gotten feedback from the community on. You know, I know the community expects us to be accountable. So we're going to talk about the things that aren't going well. Right now, we got $175 million outstanding on past due balances. We got 190,000 customers who are behind on their bill. There's, you know, I mean, our board keeps talking about it every month. There's no getting around that fact, but we got here for a reason. And it's going to take, not this year, it's going to take multiple years to climb ourselves out of this hole. But, you know, again, all you can do is start one step at a time, right? And so accountability means, you know, being strong enough to stand up when when we got to talk about something that's not maybe convenient or easy to talk about, you know, but again, all we can do is talk about it, put a plan together and go get it, right? I mean, that's what accountability means, doing just that. And that's what you're going to see us do. And then transparency. You know, there are certain things that we all know we can't talk about that related to our activity in the competitive market, whatever the case might be on our power generation side. But we found a way to put a plan, you know, in place together to try to give some independence to the process. So, because I think in the past, CPS Energy has kind of been, you know, accused, whether it's fair or not, of, you know, manipulating outcomes or whatever, you know, because we had a certain solution in mind. I can guarantee you, all I want to do is do what the community wants us to do and make sure they understand what the financial implications of those decisions are. But they want us to go 100% renewable, we'll go 100% renewable. There's a cost to that, you know, right? There's a risk associated with that. And we got to talk about those equally so that nobody can say, well, you didn't tell us that. We're going to lay it all out there. But at the end of the day, we've got a responsibility to our board to present, you know, the right solutions that we believe are balanced. And our job is to maintain balance. But I'm going to be as transparent as I can possibly be. And and the team will tell you that's what I expect out of them as well. We're going to be better at that maybe than we've been in the past. You know, so again, we're trying slowly but surely to change the narrative about, you know, how people view CPS Energy. And it's just, you know, and what that's going to take together is not spending so much time talking about the past and spend time looking ahead to the future, right? I mean, I told, you know, my job, I manage my board, I manage city council relationships along with Yvonne and the team. You know, I talk to customers. And, you know, and ultimately the one guy responsible for liability in this organization is me. Nobody else feels the weight of that responsibility, you know, more than I do. So I have a role to play and I'm going to go, you know, play it. But one of the things that I've talked to the media about is, look, I can't talk about, you know, decisions that were made in the past or outcomes that, you know, that were less than ideal. You know, grade me on my work. Right, and allow the organization to look to the future. And so I'm going to stay focused on that. I'm going to stay focused on, you know, on working with people that want to work with me and taking input from everybody. You know, even if they don't want to work with me, I'm still going to listen. I think that's fair. What else?
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Really
appreciate it, Bill.
And thank you so much.
Absolutely.
On behalf of everybody on the committee for your commitment to the CAC and for being transparent and available and very reactive whenever we have a question or a comment. You're always there. So we really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all being here today.
Thank you so much, Rudy. All right, so why don't we, Chair Day, if it's okay with you, we will move on to our next discussion, and that's going to be on the customer energy bill credit matter that's being discussed with City Council. So this was a
Did I see that we had a comment from the committee members on the line that's from the last topic before we move on?
Yes, Frank did have his hand up. Frank, did you want to chime in?
No? Okay. Well, if we do have a comment, just put it in the chat if we're discussing something else. Please continue.
All right, no problem. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the energy bill credit matter that's being discussed with City Council. So Chair Day, you'll be teeing off this topic, and joining you in this conversation is Mr. Chad Hoopengarner, our VP of Financial Planning, Pricing, and Budgets.
Thank you, Vaughn. So this is a thing where I use chairman's privilege and ask that we put this on the agenda for today. You all may have seen a lot of the news coverage about this budget issue that the city's talking about. The city has a budget surplus resulting from higher than expected distribution from CPS Energy. We've heard a lot about the 14% today because of higher revenue, not necessarily higher margin or higher income, but higher revenue because of elevated natural gas prices. That extra money went into the city's budget. The council is weighing options on what to do with that. It's about $75 million. Do they give it back to ratepayers? Do they designate it for something else? I want to emphasize before we get into this informational discussion that this is not a CPS Energy issue. This is tangential to CPS because it's a result of the 14% distribution that goes to the city council budget or the city of San Antonio budget. But it's not something that CPS has any real input into. We're not going to discuss options and decide on anything today. We're not going to make a recommendation to anybody. But some of us were appointed to this committee by city council members, and you may get a question from city council members about this. You almost certainly will get questions from your constituents and the public, the people that you talk to about this, because it has something to do with CPS Energy. So we're not going to weigh into it, but I did ask that we get some information about what the issue is, what the options are being discussed. City Council is going to address it tomorrow. So we're going to have almost real time input into what the questions are. And Chad's here to give us some of that information that we're talking about. So I asked for that just so we would all be informed on it.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you all. It's been a little while since I've had an opportunity to come chat with you all. My name is Chad Hoopengarner. I am the Vice President of Financial Planning. I work with our CFO, Corey Kuczynski, so that's kind of my area of the organization. So a little bit of context before I talk about what the city's considering doing with this money. Our financial performance sort of year to date and what has led to this whole discussion. So far this year, our revenue is pretty far above plan, 20 to 30% above plan through the first 6 months of the year, of our fiscal year. There's really two reasons for that. One of them is a big one that Benny talked about earlier. It's been hot. When it's hot, bills go up. The other big one is our fuel cost. The cost of natural gas is kind of the predominant component that's driving our fuel costs up. When that goes up, the fuel piece of the bill goes up and our revenue goes up. What happens when our revenue goes up? It kind of depends on what the driver of it is. Fuel, the first thing we do with that extra revenue is we pay our fuel bill. So it's just a pass through. We put it on the bill, bills go up, we take that money and we pay that. It goes right out the door. The second thing we do is pay city payment, which has also been high. So because of higher revenue, the city has seen a surplus in their city payment, their general fund transfer from CPS Energy. And what they're projecting for their full fiscal year is a $75 million surplus. After that, so if you take our higher revenue and you subtract the cost of the fuel that we have to pay, and then you subtract the cost of city payment that we have to pay, what's left over to cover our core business expenses is only about $5 million above plan. So out of $750 million of post-fuel, post-city payment revenue, we're about $5 million over. So we have not seen this big windfall that I think the community thinks that we've seen because of how hot it has been. When it's hot, we have higher bills and we have to pay those bills. So that's kind of thing one. Thing two is this, as Bill said, this was not our money. It is our responsibility to pay the general fund transfer to our owner, and then they get to decide what to do with that. What are they thinking about doing with it? Well, we've been working with the city staff to help them sort of characterize the impact of doing what they want to do. Out of the 75 million, there's about 25 million that they're earmarking for some specific things. I think it's a sidewalk initiative. There's a new warehouse they want to build related to the Committee for Emergency Preparedness recommendations. And there's a Edwards Aquifer Protection Program that they want to contribute to as well. So that's like a third of the 75 million that they want to do. The remaining 50 million, they want to separate into two buckets. The first is a contribution to our REAP program. That's the Residential Electricity Assistance Program. They want to provide those dollars into our REAP fund so that we can then provide it to customers who are having a hard time paying their bill, which there's a lot of these days. And if you watch our board meetings, that's a hot topic at our board meetings. So 7.5 million, the idea is for our customers that are on our affordability discount program. If you sign up or get placed on a payment program and you pay a few installments of that installment program, you sort of demonstrated good faith that you're going to pay, through the plan, then you'll get a $300 credit towards your outstanding balance. And that would be funded with this 7.5 million out of the remaining 50 million that I'm talking about. That's thing one that they're contemplating doing. The remainder, the 42.5 million, they're contemplating a bill credit. And here's their thought process as I understand it. The city has received more from CPS Energy than they were expecting. It is higher than they need to fund their approved budget for the year. And so they want to give that back to the people who delivered that extra money to them. Okay. And so they're not looking, what city staff is proposing is to give it back to every customer equally, right? Based on what their utilization was in the peak of summer. So they want us to look at their July bill and calculate a bill credit that's based on their usage in July, regardless of whether they're a residential customer or a commercial customer, regardless of whether they live inside the city limits of San Antonio or outside the city limits of San Antonio. Our customers come from all over, and we have all types of customers, all of which are responsible for contributing to this surplus. And so city staff's thought is let's return it in the fairest way possible based on how we got it on their behalf. Let's see, I think that's the highlight of my notes. So does that help kind of give you the context?
Yes, that's good. So I'll open it up for questions from the committee if that's okay. But I'd start out with something I didn't mention in my opening remarks is it fair to say that this surplus that went to the city or the city's higher than expected receipt of that funds is not a direct result from the CPS Energy rate increase that happened earlier?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's 90% of it, 95% of it is driven by the combination of weather and higher fuel costs.
And so just to put this in perspective, a lot of you know, before I'm at Frostbank now, before that I was at Valero Energy, and Valero would go through something similar to this in times when oil prices were very high. So a refiner like Valero buys crude oil in the marketplace and then turns it into gasoline or other fuels and sells that for hopefully a higher price, and that's the margin. So things like the Fortune 500 ranking are based on revenue. And when prices in the marketplace would go way up and the price that we would receive for our products was very high, even though our margins stayed the same, we weren't making any more income, but the revenue was gigantic. We were something like number 7 or number 8 on the Fortune 500 that year. We didn't grow. We didn't open anything new. We didn't add any employees, but we just went way up because revenue was way up. And that's, I think, similar to what's happening here. This is an anomaly where revenue was much higher than expected. It doesn't mean that there's any windfall of cash coming to CPS Energy. It just means that the amount that the city expected to have in its budget from the 14% allocation is higher, and now they're trying to figure out what they should do with that.
Bill, that's a great explanation. You should adopt that. No, I'm serious, because it's sometimes confusing to people about because gas or cost of gas goes up, that you made more money, right? A lot of people don't understand that. I get that all the time, right? I don't understand why there's this windfall, but that was a good explanation.
Chad, I just wanted to say, if I may, Chair Bill Day, that I'm glad that you mentioned the cities outside of San Antonio, because I have received a call from a Live Oak resident saying, well, San Antonio is contemplating what to do with those monies. Would we be included? So thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, and thank you, and I appreciate that as well, that it's clearly a city issue, and so this is just a discussion. But I look at this this way, as the relationship between the city and their taxpayers and with a utility and their rate players. And there's got to be respect, there's got to be accountability. And I say this with respect to Mary. I'm also a former city council member, and I ran into this kind of a situation one time where we had an unexpected increase in revenues. And so the first thing that happened is our staff came through it to us and said, well, we've got these 3 projects we can spend the money on. And my first reaction was, no. We went through an extensive budget setting process. We set the budget, we set the tax rate, we know what our expenses are, we know what our revenue is. Anything above that is, it's all a matter of attitude. Does government or the utility consider it their money, or is it the people's money, the people who actually paid the money? My attitude is it's the people's money. You didn't budget for it. It shouldn't be in your budget. It may be a great program. Bring it up at the next budget meeting. So in my estimation, if we show respect to the folks who, for instance, that got hit hard by the February 21 storm, and we're going to be paying for that for how many years? Just respect to the rate players. It would be my opinion that the city would return all $75 million to CPS, and CPS would give a credit to all of their rate players. I think that's the fair thing to do. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks. And that illustrates why this is in the news and kind of controversial, is there's a lot of ideas. Anytime you talk about $75 million worth of money, everybody's going to have an idea of what should happen to that. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
We had a debate with District 5 and several presidents throughout the community last week about this. There was a few people that were saying the same thing, where, the money should go back to the people. The other thing about that, and that I wanted to bring up, was, well, how much we are the lower part of the usage. So the higher end usage people will get possibly a check back for maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. And how would that look to a normal household that may get $30 back, compared to an organization or a large company that gets $100,000 back? So that was one of the main things that we talked about, and I brought up, and this is my thoughts, was if we put this back into programs that help weatherize houses, this would help small businesses, small businesses and homeowners to help weatherize, keep our energy usage low, and help those people save money in the long run. Yes, it's not going directly back to them, but they'll hopefully see it by weatherizing their homes, or businesses so that we reduce what CPS has to put out as well. So after, debating back and forth with, I believe it was 5 or 6 neighborhood associations in our district, a lot of them realized, even just, I always bring up the whole smart thermostat thing that when I got it through CPS or the credit, it started saving me between $5 to $10 a month. And that adds up over the years. So just even something like that, getting free from, well, not free, but through these programs will help a family in the long run. So it's just my 2 cents. And like I said, it was mainly the thing that we brought up was, yes, we'll get a credit back, but the way that people might see it when higher users get that credit back as well.
So far, all of these comments are exactly the opinions that I've heard from council members, and that this is exactly what they're discussing. I guess the one additional detail that I'll add is the bill credit is, what they're proposing is that the bill credit would be calculated based on the July bill. And it ends up being about a 12.5% credit back from your July bill. So if you're a residential customer and you had a $250 July bill, you get about a $30 bill credit. It's like 12.5%. If you're a super large commercial customer and you had a $900,000 bill, you'd get $100,000 back, roughly 12.5%. So they recognize, they're trying to be fair, but also recognizing the optics of residential assistance versus commercial. So.
Thank you again, Chad. Really appreciate you coming and letting us know that.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chad. Well, Chair Day, we can go ahead and resume roundtable discussion, and then you can adjourn the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I already took my time in the roundtable, so I'll just go around and we'll go by in order that we're on the roll call. Richard, do you have anything for the committee? He dropped off. Okay, Lawson, are you still on?
I am, but I'm good.
Okay. Diana, you're here. Good. Frank, are you there? He dropped off. Oh. Okay. Andy, do you have anything for us? Okay. Raquel Zapata? Nothing. That brings us to John Kelly.
Uh-oh. I have a thought that I wanted to kind of throw out for us for not next month, but sometime in the near future. One of the things that I think might be interested, at least it seems like it might be, is something that we can kick around and see if enough interest is there. I think it'd be interesting to take a tour of the South Texas nuclear plant, just to kind of see how it operates. I know that they did a tour, Bill, what, about 2018 or something like that, or 17? So it's been done before, but there's a lot of new members on the CAC since then. So I was just going to throw that out there as one possibility that we might want to think about. And the reason is nuclear power can be a real backstop for us as we trend in the future to more renewable energy. Sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day, and the wind doesn't blow all the time when you necessarily want it to be blowing. So we need some sort of, we've got to maintain some kind of backstop, and it's many years off before we're going to have enough battery power to take care of those issues. So nuclear, in my view, is a good, and I know that's a minority view, I understand that, but, in my view, that's something we ought to not discount anyway. So anyway, I just throw that out as if that's something that anybody else would be interested in being involved in a tour maybe.
Okay, Frank, do you have a comment for us? Are you on mute? While we're waiting, Tom, do you have anything for us?
I'd say no. Couple things. One is, I like your idea of the tour. I don't know if it could be nuclear, it could be one of the other power plants, but just getting exposed to the assets, I think it'd be huge.
Don't say exposed.
Thank you, Bill.
We're talking about nuclear stuff, so.
That's right. That's right. Rudy mentioned a 5-year strategic plan. Don't think I've seen that. Be good to see it.
Gotcha.
Next on the agenda, maybe.
Absolutely. And also, as far as a power plant tour, we are working on that.
Perfect. Perfect. Second thing is, a couple meetings ago, you had suggested that for newcomers, onboarding kind of, and, you know, people, I think, sent you stuff. Be great to see where that is. Even though I've been almost a year, I still feel like a newbie, right? I could use a whole lot of onboarding. I don't know if you can get it to us in parts or whatever, but
That's the plan. Yes.
we'd love to see some of that stuff start coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the team has put together a framework and we're going to go over that with the executive committee and then we can coordinate to roll that out.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and Steve, do you have anything for us?
Tom took my topic. That was great. It was exactly what I was going to ask about. It was the onboarding. So thank you very much for that. But also want to thank you, Chairman, for bringing up that last topic today, because I think it was very timely and it was very educational, I think, for us to hear from the CPS view on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to the staff for putting that together. Do we have Frank?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, good. So my last comment was about the trustee coming to us. For clarification, did we mean like one of the board members will come and sit down with us, or would it be a representative of the board members?
It's an actual board member. So the RAC has a board member liaison. It's one of the board members that sits in on their meetings, and Trustee Romero was asking if we wanted something similar. So they would be open to sending a board member to our meetings. It's just whether we want to host that and how often we want to host that.
Okay, so I can go either way with the idea. The only condition I would say if that were to happen, we would have to, one, keep our independence and not be our opinions and our future should not be swayed because of a board member is present. And I don't want to impact our independence, for one. Two is the second thing I would say is it's a double-edged sword because in the past I've joined other committees. Every now and then you'll have somebody who wants to pull their ranking and want to sway a decision or an opinion, and that will basically kill our motivation to continue having our talks, which are very diversified and very founded with their expertise. I guess backtracking is I would support it only if we have those conditions. Basically, it's like when we go visit the board members and have their meeting, we listen, and if we have something to say, we have to follow the rules of we have to say this, have our 3 or 5 minute speech, and then go back and sit down. So I would have something similar into effect if they were to join us, only so everyone's comfortable speaking and not be fearful of rank.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just want to make sure everybody understands that the CPS Energy Board does not have rank over the CAC. The CPS Energy Board does not appoint members to the CAC. They can't remove members from the CAC. So they really have no physical control over this organization, which is why our independence from them is important and why the perception of that independence is important. So it would be, my opinion, if we do it, it would be as an observer status. They can come in, see what we're doing, offer any feedback, offer any suggestions, comments, get input from us, of course, which is important. So we'll discuss it further. It's not something we have to talk about or discuss further today. That brings us to the end of the roundtable. Speaking of the RAC and the committee and how things are done, I believe this might be Andy Castillo's last meeting with the CAC. Andy Castillo was one of the members on the CAC when I joined, as was Mary. So that tells you how long he's been serving. So, and you did a little overtime. I don't know if you got time and a half for that or not, but I hope so. Hope there's a little extra in your CAC paycheck for that. Thank you very much for all of your service and your leadership, and we really do appreciate you being here. Does anyone have a motion to adjourn? Andy, do we have a second? All right. All in favor, say aye. All right, we're adjourned.